Hi guys, my name is Suchi Gupta. I am a credit risk consultant, and today we will be running through the kind of errors that we face when doing a hypothesis testing. In the previous videos, we've talked about hypothesis testing. So what is hypothesis testing? When a statement is being stipulated or then a statistical test is performed basically to check whether the statement that is being said is correct or not. For example, if we stipulate that the average age of men in New Delhi, India is 50 years, then there are a series of statistical tests that need to be performed in order to check whether this is true or not true. When we do hypothesis testing or any kind of statistical tests, that when they are done, they cannot be 100% reliability on those tests, and therefore which means that it can lead to errors. There are various kinds of errors that can come when a statistical test or hypothesis testing in this case is performed. Today in this video, we will be talking about the kind of errors that may occur while performing a hypothesis testing. The errors in hypothesis testing form a very important part because they help us in calculating the accuracy of the statement that you are actually trying to make. They also tell us about the reliability of the statement that comes with the test results from the hypothesis testing. So once each and every test in hypothesis testing is done, we basically need to look at what is the accuracy, the reliability on which we can rely upon this particular statement. So therefore, studying about the errors become a very integral part of hypothesis testing. Now, there are two types of errors that can occur in hypothesis testing. One is called false positive or type 1 error, and the second one is called false negative or a type 2 error. Now I'll be quickly briefing you about these errors, and then later on we will be talking in great depths about what each of this error mean and what are the consequences that happen if such errors occur when you are performing the hypothesis testing. Okay, so type 1 error is when we reject a null that is true, which means as a result of which what happens, a false positive, they come into the system, which means that you have rejected the null hypothesis that is actually true. So a false positive will come in the system. They are also called significant levels or alphas. Now type 2 is when we fail to reject the null hypothesis. What does this fail to reject means? Fail to reject means when we accept the null hypothesis that is actually false. They're also called as betas. Okay, I've just given you the definition of type 1 and type 2 error. Now we will talk in great depths of what they actually mean. Okay, now let's talk about type 1 error. Now what did I say? You have rejected a null hypothesis that is true. So remember, in the hypothesis section I told you that there are two hypotheses that we form. One is the null hypothesis and other one is the alternative hypothesis. Like, given this is false, then what is the result that we expect? Okay, so when we reject the null hypothesis, let's take the simple example that we've been taken, that we are discussing so far. The average age of male in New Delhi, India is 50. So basically what we're doing is we're rejecting this null hypothesis. We believe that, okay, this cannot happen. The average age of male in New Delhi cannot be 50. However, it is actually true. That means that in reality, it is true. Let's take a very simple example which all of us might have encountered while going to the airports. Whenever we are having the security check, sometimes our bag of coins or our keys are tagged as risky items, or they are tagged in red, and like we need to show our luggage in order to just let them know that no, it's not a risky item, it's not a weapon or any other threatening material. So what has happened? It's a false positive. A false positive has come into the testing because our item, the coin or the bunch of keys, has been tagged as a wrong item. We have rejected the null hypothesis that the items that are going are non-hazardous, and a false positive has come into the system. Okay, now talking the reverse side of it. That is type 2 error or false negative. False negative occurs when we fail to reject the null hypothesis that is false. Again, what does fail to reject means? Which means that we have accepted our null hypothesis. That is, we are saying that we accept the average age of male in New Delhi, India is 50. But in reality, it is not. That's the false part. So false negatives come into our lists of outputs, which means, taking our security, airport security examples, this means that actually a luggage carrying a weapon or a hazardous material is tagged as safe, and that passes the security check. So a negative, a false negative has entered the system. What are the important thing that needs to be understood is that what are the consequences? Once the error has occurred is fine, okay, we've occurred type 1 error, or basically we've accepted either a wrong judgment or we've rejected a right judgment. Once the error has occurred, but what are the consequences? How does it lead to a bad result or a bad output analysis? We will be covering on now. Okay, now talking about the consequences that the type 1 error and the type 2 error might have on the system, on the output, on the society. We will be discussing these in great details. Okay, now when we talk about type 1 error, which means that you have basically tagged a non-risky item as a risky item. Now let's also compare, let's basically put this into real life perspective. You are losing the confidence of the people that are flying. You're giving them trouble. They face inconvenience. So that is the outcome that can happen. Now, if we take the same outcome to the banking environment, imagine your customers being tagged as risky, even though they are good customers. What can it lead to? It can lead to bad customer reputations, customers not wanting to do business with you. You have actually ended up in making a bad choice. Basically, customers have gone and they have not chosen to do business with you. Occurrence of type 1 error leads to lack of reliability, trust, and loss of customers. On the same hand, what does type 2 error do? Type 2 error means that you have failed to reject the null hypothesis, which means that you've accepted a wrong customer. How can we say that? So if a weapon passes through the security check, it's a life-threatening situation for the people of that particular aircraft. If the same thing happens in a banking scenario, which means that you have given loan thinking that the customer is good, but actually the customer is a very risky customer and can lead to non-performing assets in the future, or the person not being able to pay back the loan. Okay, so these are the consequences that actually happen when type 1 and type 2 errors do happen. Okay, now once we know what type 1 and type 2 error are, what are the consequences that it can have on the system, there are various statistical measures that are taken in order to study the results from the hypothesis testing, and they are summarized in a visual matrix called confusion matrix. Now, as you can see, it's a simple matrix, 2x2 blocks, which tells that what is actually the reality and what has been perceived by the statistical model or through the hypothesis testing. Now, something that is true in reality and has been correctly tagged by our model is called true positive and is a correct thing to do. Something that is false in reality and has been correctly tagged as false, that means the null hypothesis has been rejected, is called true positives. These are the true outputs that have been correctly tagged by your statistical model. However, problem occurs when something that is not true and has been tagged as true from the statistical model, which leads to type 1 error, where null hypothesis has been rejected even though it was true. Okay, leads to type 1 error. Similarly, when you fail to reject the null hypothesis, which is false, then you lead to type 2 errors. Type 2 error occur when something in reality is true, however the model has perceived it as false. Like in the airport example, in reality it was a weapon, but the machine, the security machine, tagged it as a safe item and you were let to go. Understanding the terminologies become extremely important because later on we will be studying how do we measure the accuracy, reliability and the recall value of the model once these concepts are clear. So we understand what is true positive. It is basically in reality is correct and the model is also tagged as correct. What is true negative? Something that has to be rejected because it's not correct and is also rejected by the model, so it's true negative. True positive and true negative tells us about the accuracy of the model, like how good the model is well able to predict what is right and what is wrong. Then we come to false positive, something that is basically accepted, however it was false, that is type 1 error. And false negative, that's something that was true but has been rejected, that is type 2 error. Now once these terminologies are understood by us, a very important factor that comes is understanding how these are used to measure the model. So the accuracy of the model, as I said, is true positive upon true negative, that is how well the model is tagging the correct outcomes upon the total number of outcomes, true positive, true negative, false positive, false negative. That tells us how well the model is actually able to tag the correct output. Now another important parameter that we learn from confusion matrix is apart from accuracy is precision and recall. So precision basically tells us out of the total positive population, that is the total population that is tagged by the model. So the first row of the confusion matrix, that is true positive and false positive, out of the total positives tagged, how much is correctly tagged by the model. So the precision is the true positive upon true positive plus false positive. So the first row, you add the first row, which tells you what is the precision, how precisely my model is able to tag the correct risky population out of the total population that is being tagged. Okay, now let's talk about the third parameter that can be studied from the confusion matrix, that is called the recall feature. If you look at the first column of the confusion matrix, that is the true positives and the false negative, we can calculate the recall feature from this, from looking at these two components in the matrix. What does this feature tells us? This feature tells us that out of the total population that should have been tagged as risky, how many have actually been tagged as risky. So it is true positive upon true positive plus false negative. True positive, those populations that are risky and have been correctly tagged. False negatives are those populations that were risky but have not been tagged by our model as risky. So the three important features that we can study from confusion matrix, as we've discussed now, are precision, how well or how precise is my model in capturing the risky customers, the recall features, that how many risky customers were actually captured by the model, and accuracy of the model out of the total population, how much population was correctly, accurately tagged as positive, as a risky or a non-risky customer. Okay, in this video we covered about what the type of risks are, how are they calculated, what are the consequences once they occur, and how can they be used in calculating the accuracy, precision and the recall feature of the particular statistical model that you are working on. In the upcoming videos, we will be covering the various tests that are associated with hypothesis testing, such as Z-test, T-test, chi-square test, F-test. We will be talking about all such tests in the upcoming videos. I hope you liked our video. Please do write a comment in case you liked the video or you want to share your thoughts, or if you want us to cover a particular statistical or an economics related topic, we will be happy to do so. We are also on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. So please do join us. Please do subscribe to us in order to help us increase the community. Thank you.